a grandmother in Greater Manchester was visited by police officers after she criticised Labour politicians on Facebook. Now, detectives questioned 54-year-old Helen Jones after she called for the resignation of local councillors involved in that WhatsApp scandal. Now, although Greater Manchester Police agreed that Helen had committed no crime, she had said that she feels intimidated into being silent online and would not post again. Well, we're now joined by that super grand Helen Jones on GB News. Helen, a pleasure to have you on the show. An astonishing state of affairs. Greater Manchester is an area that basically fails to solve 3 out of 4 shoplifting incidents. It won't even report its violent crime figures when we ask them, and yet they find time to knock on your front door for a Facebook post. How on earth did that make you feel?
Well, it was a shock because you don't often see plainclothes police officers. They're only sort of like used for very important things. So at first they knocked on the door. Obviously I wasn't in. So I spent 45 minutes worrying until they actually rang me. I was getting ready to go to a police station to ask what it was about, because you sort of see those things on the TV and it's to tell you if a relative has passed away or similar. So I was absolutely astounded when they told me what it was for.
And then you asked them who made the complaint and they wouldn't even tell you.
No, I did. When they told me what it was about, a Facebook post, I did put the names to them and they actually said, we can confirm your thought process is correct. So they were more or less saying, you know, I'm right in who I'm saying it is, at which point I was like quite annoyed.
But look, Helen, we live in a society where anybody should be free to criticise anybody they like within the realms of acceptable speech, which your comments were. I've seen them. A lot of people are saying, including J.D. Vance, the Vice President of America, that free speech seems to be under big, big peril in the United Kingdom. Would you agree with that?
I would. With this happening, definitely. It just makes you question everything before you put it down in writing. You know, am I going to get in trouble for this when it's a perfectly valid comment? It wasn't derogatory. It was just what you generally hear with politicians. Are you going to resign?
And, you know, you're an ordinary, hard-working taxpayer. You've never been in trouble before in your life. How harrowing was it? Just having 2 coppers banging on your door. This is not the sort of thing that happens to ordinary people like yourself.
No, it was. It was mainly the worry that what did he want? You know, had I been in, maybe it wouldn't have been as scary because obviously I'd have known straight away what it was about. And I found it quite amusing afterwards, to be honest, because I just couldn't believe it. Amusing, but obviously very angry. I did actually say to them that I was very annoyed about it and, you know, go and chase real crime. Because I just think, you know, councillor has abused his right there and got the police. If I went to them, I don't think they'd have been knocking on somebody else's door if I'd have put a complaint in.
And isn't that the point? You know, people say so often they can't get hold of a copper if they have their house burgled. They can't get hold of a copper if their car's broken into. People walk into shops and take whatever they want all over the shop, and they never seem to get apprehended. And suddenly you get in the long arm of the law banging on your door of a Facebook post. And we've saw this, have we not, since those riots in Southport. Do you think there's a complete lack of understanding of the priorities of modern policing?
Definitely. I mean, I don't really know the process of this and how this complaint has actually been dealt with. I am going to take it further, but, you know, was it someone senior to them that sent them out? Did they decide? Did they have a choice in coming out? People have said different things, but you would think that they'd have the common sense to just say, I'm not going out for this. And the amazing thing is the police have my telephone number anyway, because years ago I used to liaise with them about community crime and post it on Facebook on their behalf. So they didn't have to come to the door flashing a warrant card the way they did.
It's even more astonishing. You know, you're one of the good guys who've been helping the police in the past. Helen, can I ask you, there's been a lot of conversation about 2-tier policing, about politicised policing. Do you think that in this particular instance, Labour councillors were utilising leverage to get that knock on your front door? Do you think that the police do feel politicised?
Definitely. Definitely. I know for a fact if I went with the same complaint, they'd have pushed me out the station. They wouldn't have even picked up a pen to note it down. It's because it's come from a counsellor.
And what does that say to you about somebody who pays your council tax, who pays your taxes, who goes to work? You're perfectly entitled to criticise any public official. We all are. We still just about live in a free country with free speech, Helen Joyce. What does it say to you when the moment you speak out, they're banging on your door?
Almost given up on this country. I'd encourage my children to move abroad. If this is how this country is going, what's the point? What's the point in anything? They're elected by us to represent us. They're entitled to be questioned about things they've done.
Well, Helen Jones, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much for talking to us here on GB News Today. Keep your chin up, stay in touch, and the very, very best of British. It's wonderful to speak to you, Helen. You take care. Thank you very, very much, darling.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Trans police officers will be allowed to strip search women despite ongoing backlash from critics. New guidance for the National Police Chiefs Council says that biologically male staff who identify as women should be allowed to intimately search women as long as they possess a gender recognition certificate. Now, what could possibly go wrong? But some women's rights groups claim that the police had forgotten about women in their pursuit of gender ideology. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner, Lisa Townsend. Lisa, a delight to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much for joining us. A lot of people have very, very legitimate concerns that if you're a woman, you're in a vulnerable position, you're being searched intimately, it should be another woman who is searching you. And a trans woman, in a lot of people's eyes, isn't a woman. They're a biological man who says they're a woman. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I completely agree, Martin. But I have to say, and I hate to say, I'm not surprised about this latest announcement from the NPCC. I'm afraid that this is just the latest in a long line of announcements like this from the NCC about the ability for trans police officers to search women, males, essentially, to search women. We wouldn't think it was okay anywhere else, and it's not okay in policing. I think there's also another way of looking at this, which is it's not just male officers, and they are born male. We are talking about males being able to search women. It's also the other way round. It's also female officers potentially being told that they have to search a trans woman, i.e. a male who has been brought into custody. That male could have been brought into custody because he himself has been violent, and he is insisting that he is a woman and therefore, you know, there's no time to check the gender recognition certificate, but that's how he identifies, and he insists on a female officer searching him. So I think we have to look at this on both sides, and either way, it can't be right.
Lisa Townsend, I want to speak to coppers like you, common sense coppers. It gives me real hope. It's the same with a friend of ours, Donald Jones, who's the Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire. And yet, we seem to be getting orders coming down from above, which is pandering to gender ideology and not reality. Where did we go so wrong?
Well, and again, I'm not surprised. And the current chair of the NPCC, I'm afraid, has form here. He was a chief constable in Surrey before he became chair of the NPCC. So I didn't appoint him, but he was chief constable when I became police and crime commissioner. And I'm afraid this is his view. He's always been very clear. He's made public statements about it. He's made public statements, certainly within the force, against me on this issue when I spoke up about it nearly 4 years ago. So I'm not surprised to see the NPCC doing this. What I would say is each chief constable is operationally independent within their own force. And I want to see forces push back against this, and chief constables think very carefully about as PCCs and the way we do about the constituents we serve. I want chief constables to think about the public they serve. There's an awful lot of work has gone in recent years, right across policing, right across our country, around making women feel safer, both in the presence of police officers and in men more generally. I think it would be such a shame if we were to now go backwards on this as policing, because we're ignoring what can be certainly a very vulnerable group.
Well, that's precisely right. And there are over 70,000 strip searches conducted in police stations and other locations across the UK every year. And if even one of them is invasive in a way that harms somebody who is very vulnerable. You know, we used to look after women. We used to take care of women. We used to put the needs of women rightly on a pedestal, particularly when they're at their most vulnerable, when they're being arrested or they're being searched over circumstances. We do not know the individual circumstances of them. Why is it then that the rights of a tiny percentile of the population seem to trump the common sense rights of the vast majority, more than 50% of Britons?
Well, and that is, it's common sense. And actually, I don't think women here are asking to be put on a pedestal. I don't think we are asking for special treatment. We're asking for the very basic sort of human right of being treated with dignity. And for many of us, that means that if we are in a position where we're in custody, and let's be honest, Martin, any of us could end up in custody for any reason. It's not only guilty people who go into custody, but even those who have committed an offence. It could be any of us. You are incredibly vulnerable. That's why we do so much work as police and crime commissioners with independent custody visitors to make sure that the standards in custody are good, to make sure that everybody is looked after, whether they have a health need or any other need. And it's just really basic, isn't it, to say that women in custody and men in custody should be treated with the absolute most basic dignity.
Yeah, Lisa, I wasn't suggesting, when I said put them on a pedestal, I think that just comes from my innate desire to protect women, which, that might be an old-fashioned sexist. It might make me a dinosaur. I just believe we should protect women. I think that's any society's role. And I just wonder if the police have lost sight of that, having been captured by this woke ideology. And do you think there's any end to this? Or is this now a never-ending cakewalk of madness?
No, well, I do actually think we have turned a corner. I mean, I remember, and it is nearly 4 years ago now, when I came out publicly and said what I said about Stonewall and about self-ID and about the pendulum having swung too far in the other way. We had a real problem in policing years ago and decades ago around the way in which they treated minorities and the way in which particularly they treated gay men and women. And thankfully, we've seen a massive, massive change in that. And that's really, really good thing. And we have to applaud that. My view is the pendulum has swung too far the other way. Now, when I first said that, I received a huge amount of criticism. I was called brave for doing it and received criticism from, as I said, my own chief constable at the time, who is now chair of the NPCC, for saying that. I was called bigoted and transphobic and all kinds of things. I have to say I got a lot more support, actually, from women right across the country and the world for saying it. It's not considered brave to say it anymore. And that's really important. That can only be a good thing. I do think we've turned a corner. However, we are still seeing some individuals who are campaigning, quite frankly. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the NPCC. They're taking a political issue and they're insisting on essentially running a campaign rather than actually doing the job of protecting the most vulnerable in our society.
You know, hallelujah for coppers like you. Thank you for coming on today. I think the huge majority of people agree with your common sense position. Thanks for speaking out. Please continue to do so. And please come back on the show. An excellent guest. That's Lisa Townsend, the Surrey Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers.